Coming up this week, Perplexity's new browser finally gets a launch date, new AI voice features from Spotify, Notion and others, a new tool that describes itself as the world's first junior AI PM, and an announcement from Microsoft that could shake up the tech industry forever. As always, if you enjoyed the briefing, hit the subscribe and the like button. So first up this week, Spotify has introduced a new voice-powered AI feature that gives users greater control over their DJ sessions by asking the DJ to mix things up a little. So users can interact with the DJ by pressing and holding the DJ button and start a voice conversation where you can ask it to switch tracks or genres. Now, voice isn't an easy interaction model to get right, but this seems like a pretty helpful way to integrate it. Other companies with new voice AI features this week include Notion, who have unveiled a competitor to AI note-taking tools like Otter and Granola, with the release of their own AI meeting voice transcription feature. Now, the UX for this is also pretty impressive, as you might expect from the product teams at Notion, and it's baked directly into a standard note page, but it can be initiated using the /meet shortcut. Alongside meeting notes, Notion also unveiled Enterprise Search, which is a new search feature that allows you to search across multiple different tools like Google Drive, Jira, Slack, and others. But Notion might have some solid competition on its hands pretty soon. Perplexity's CEO has revealed that he plans to add voice transcription capabilities to their upcoming browser. He's also teased a release date for that browser, so stay tuned for that. And another AI voice feature worth knowing about this week is a new feature from Masterclass. Now, we might not necessarily class Masterclass as a tech company, but this is an edtech company that allows users to learn new skills from people who've mastered whatever it might be. So this feature is called On Call. And as you can see, you can choose from multiple different types of celebrities and ask them questions relating to their skill set. So here's an example of a conversation with Mark Cuban.
Hey there, this is the AI of Mark Cuban. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Can I pitch my startup and get your feedback?
Sure thing. Lay it on me. What's the big idea?
It's AI for AI. We are a platform that AI can turn to when it needs help, feedback, reassurance, like humans turn to ChatGPT.
Interesting concept. So how does this solve a problem that matters? Why would anyone care about giving emotional support to AI?
And if you're interested in learning more about how to introduce voice AI features into your own product, then take a look at this week's Deep Dive, where I explore new features released by companies including Linear, Stripe, DoorDash, Tinder, and others. And included in this is a framework that you can use to assess voice AI opportunities. So this mini app lets you assess the viability of your voice AI feature using assessment criteria like the user context, the use case fit, and the environmental suitability, because you can't always talk to a product unless you're in a suitable environment. So if you're interested in learning more about what types of AI features companies are releasing, then head over to Substack this week. Meanwhile, an AI coding startup called Zen Coder has announced the launch of a new feature it calls Zen Agents. And this is essentially a series of AI coding agents that are built specifically for product development teams. Now, this area is becoming more saturated, but setting aside the coding agents for a second, one thing that they have launched as part of this, which is pretty interesting, is an open source marketplace where engineers and product teams can find specialist AI coding agents to suit specific needs. So, for example, they've got an accessibility evaluator agent that evaluates code for accessibility issues, a bug prediction and prevention agent, and also a tech debt identifier agent that, as you might expect, identifies, prioritizes, and addresses code quality issues. And continuing the theme of AI coding, Sam Altman spoke at an event at Sequoia Capital this week. And during his speech, he outlined his vision of what the future might look like. And as part of this, he envisions that OpenAI, unsurprisingly, will be the leading provider of a core AI subscription, which serves as a personalized AI agent that integrates into users' lives across various services and devices. And that this AI would act like an operating system. So it would leverage a single smart model where developers can then build on top of this model in ways that would allow interaction between different agents. He also envisions a future that incorporates a user's entire life data, so that includes things like email conversations and more. And he predicts that AI will serve as a catalyst for scientific and economic progress, where he expects AI to contribute to major scientific discoveries, with AI transitioning into the physical world by 2027. And he finishes by saying that coding is central to AI's open roadmap, as it enables companies to move from AI coding assistants to autonomous agents and applications. So if you're interested in learning more about Sam Altman's vision of the future, then check out that talk. Meanwhile, there are also rumors that Google is set to unveil its own AI software development agent at its upcoming I/O event. So this event is due to kick off next week, and at the moment all we've got is a bunch of rumors to work off, so none of this is confirmed yet. But according to reports, this new AI agent will be a sort of ambient agent that is a little bit different to the likes of Copilot, in the sense that it's not something that you proactively engage with, but rather an agent that is constantly checking your code base and preempting issues before they arise. So whether the leaks will prove to be correct on that, we'll have to just wait and see until next week once that event kicks off. But one rumor that did prove to be true was Google's new material design. So this was something that was leaked last week. And this is a new version of material design called Material Design Expressive. So this is a Gen Z inspired expressive makeover. And this new version uses bold expressive colors, including pinks, purples, and oranges, plus a new physics engine for UI interactions and an expansive new library of shapes. So this design, like previous iterations, is open source. And it looks as though Google is positioning this to contrast quite starkly with Apple's upcoming redesign of iOS, which is rumored to be using the simple translucent glass-like UI components that are seen in Vision OS. Google says that it took 46 different design research sessions to finalize this new design system, and says that the new design system resonates especially well with younger users. So you might be thinking, well, does this mean that the new design system may be a little bit ageist, in the sense that it's targeted heavily towards younger people who prefer these colors? Well, Google's research suggests not. Google says that its expressive design system actually enabled older users to spot key interactive elements on the screen just as fast as the younger users that it tested across 10 different apps. If you're interested in learning more about the research underpinning that, then Google has published that over on its blog. And Google wasn't alone in a refresh of its UI this week. Airbnb also introduced a new product refresh, which includes some bold new skeuomorphic icons. This was released as part of Airbnb's refresh, where it introduced more services outside of its core traditional offering of places to stay. So check those icons out if you're interested in the finer details of product design. Now let's move on to some tools you can use, and we'll start with a company called Fellow. And I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's spelled F-E-L-L-O-U. And this is the world's first agentic browser, which they say turns browsing into action. And on their website, they have a bunch of different use cases that you can take a look at, one of which is the ability to book a calendar. So if we take a look at this example, you can see that the browser shows an outline of the steps required in order to book a calendar and then performs those actions on a user's behalf. So if you're looking for innovative new browsers that allow you to perform agentic actions, then take a look at Fellow. But there's one browser in particular that we're all waiting for at the moment, and that is the new browser from Perplexity called Comet. This week, their CEO gave us an update on when we can expect that new browser to be released. Speaking on X, he said that as for a release date, it's going to take a minimum of 3 weeks and a maximum of 5 weeks. Reliability and latency have improved over the last few weeks, and that the last 10 to 20% is so much harder than we thought. Anyone who's built any products knows that that final 10 to 20% is typically the most difficult part of any release. So good luck to the team working on that, and hopefully we'll get to see Perplexity's new browser released within the next 3 to 5 weeks. The next product is something called Substage, and if you're a Mac user, then this could be quite helpful. So this bolts onto the bottom of every single Finder window, and it allows you to use conversational AI to perform actions. So as you can see in this example, you could select a bunch of files in a folder and then ask Substage to perform actions on those, like deleting a certain file or scaling images into a certain format. So this is quite a nice concept of how to use AI in a really practical way, similar to the browser, but this time on the OS level. And the final product for this week is something called Thrive AI. And this company have just raised $1.2 million to build what they describe as an AI agent that acts like a junior product manager. So Thrive AI is positioning itself as a junior member of the product team that can do things like spot issues before they explode. So they explain here that the AI PM can scan product metrics and user feedback around the clock, find your biggest growth levers by searching through user behavior, and also fetch the right data fast. So if you're interested in augmenting your team with a junior AI product manager, then check out Thrive AI. Now let's take a look at some data and trends for the week. And we'll start with a fascinating report from SimilarWeb, which is their AI Global report that breaks down the traffic levels that some of the world's leading AI products are experiencing and then draws some conclusions from that. So this report contains a whole bunch of different information across multiple different areas. These stats show us the percentage increase or decline versus the previous 12-week period. But here's some of the stats that I found particularly interesting. First is that Grok is now the fastest growing general AI tool, with growth of over 5,000% in the last 12-week period, which is pretty impressive. But even so, it still lags behind the likes of ChatGPT, which you can see here from this graph is still way out in front. And you can also see that DeepSeek has shrunk from its high 3 months ago back down to a low, albeit bigger than it was originally. Another stat is that discussion and Q&A forums are steadily falling, with perhaps the exception of Reddit. But you can see here that Quora, for example, has dropped 47% in the last 12-week periods. Now, this, to some extent, is not surprising because humans seem to be steadily replacing the Q&A and discussion forums with chatbots. So this is something that we kind of expect. And finally, for code completion and DevOps tools, you can see here that they're still pretty much increasing across the board, across most of the major products. But you can see there's one product in particular that has experienced massive growth, particularly at the start of this year. So if you look at Lovable, earlier this year in January, it experienced 12,500% growth, which has shrunk slightly to 207% growth versus the previous 12 weeks. But again, it's way ahead of competitors like Cursor, Replit, Bolt, and others. And speaking of AI code completion, this week, the latest stats show us that Meta is now predicting that over 50% of its code will be generated by AI within the next year. And as you can see from this graph, pretty much all of the big tech companies now have at least 25 to 30% of their code being generated by AI. But using AI at work does come with some downsides. This new study shows that using AI at work actually makes people more productive, but less motivated at work when they shift from tasks that involve collaborating with AI to tasks that don't. So this is a new study that was commissioned, and it shows that on solo tasks where AI is not involved, intrinsic motivation dropped by an average of 11%, and boredom increased by an average of 20%. This research included 4 experimental conditions to examine the effects of transitioning between generative AI collaboration and solo work. These tasks involve things like writing a welcome email and composing a Facebook post, which it says are representative of professional, cognitively demanding tasks. So essentially what this study finds is that when users switch from using AI to then working on their own, they become less motivated and become more bored, which could have significant impact of the implementation of generative AI in the workplace. But that isn't stopping companies from investing in AI in the workplace. A new report this week from Bain shows that investment in AI has doubled, with companies saying that they have an average of 5 different use cases now in production versus 2.5 in October 2023. And this analysis from RAMP shows that more companies are paying for AI subscriptions as well. So this report looks at the spending of SaaS companies and estimates that 40.1% of the companies featured now spend on AI tools and products, with OpenAI making up 32.4% of that, followed by Anthropic with just 8%. Google, as you can see, dropped from 2.2% in February down to just 0.1% in April. So Google having a tough time there selling itself into corporate. One company where AI is having a significant impact though this week is Microsoft, which has confirmed that it will cut around 6,000 jobs, with many of those jobs coming from managers and non-coders. So this does represent less than 6% of its global workforce. But an insider who spoke to Business Insider said that these cuts are intended to reduce the number of middle managers and increase the ratio of coders versus non-coders on products. So Microsoft is said to be trying to decrease the so-called PM ratio on some teams, which is the ratio of product managers to engineers. Now, if you've ever worked in big tech, then you'll know that in some companies, it's quite common to have more product managers than engineers, which never really made much sense. But this is heightened in the current climate, where the very makeup of a product team is now being questioned. And finally, this week, we end with an application of AI that you may not have seen before, which is in the courtroom. So this week, it was reported that an AI avatar made to look and sound like a man who was killed in a road rage accident addressed the court and the man who killed him. So this is the AI-generated avatar that was used in court, and this was used as an impact statement and played out to the court to ensure that the judge and those present fully understood the implications of this crime. So quite a touching and thought-provoking note to end on. Thanks very much for listening and watching. I'll be back next week with another briefing.